It's the Rob Carson Show. Are you ready to be podsmacked? Now, here's Rob Carson.
Episode number 92 of the Rob Carson Show podcast. Hello and welcome to the radio program. A lot of things to get to today. A lot of stuff out of Washington, D.C. A little bit more on the James Comey firing. I've got a monologue from Keith Olbermann that is, I mean, it deserves some sort of an actor nomination because it is so melodramatic and so saccharine and so dramatic. It is. I don't know how I'll explain it when I play the audio for you. All right, we've got some audio from Maxine Waters. We've got some audio from Rand Paul, Ed Markey, senator from Massachusetts, Tucker Carlson, a whole bunch of stuff to get to as the show progresses. Want to thank our official sponsor, which is Grass Monsters KC, grassmonsterskc.com. Andrew Cook is the guy who put this place together, and they sell a couple different kinds of mowers that are just amazing. All zero turnius, all zero turnius. That's interesting. Zero turning radius, Dixie Choppers and Hustlers. Dixie Choppers made in Indiana and Hustler made in Kansas. They're both built like a brick excrement house. For instance, you can get a Raptor made by Hustler, 3-year, no hour limit warranty. Okay, on everything. That's pretty impressive. All right? The X1, a 2-year, no hour limit warranty, or a 5-year, 500-hour warranty on this mower. Bumper to bumper, or should I say blade to blade. Both of these mowers, Dixie Choppers and Hustlers, are just amazing, and they're so much better than those mowers parked out in front and chained out in front of the big box hardware store. Plus, also, Grass Monsters KC has the people there to handle it if there are any issues whatsoever. They got a great shop there, and they do wonderful work. All right? GrassMonstersKC.com, 5520 Raytown Road, Raytown Mo. Again, GrassMonstersKC.com. If you live anywhere else in the country, check out the Silver Eagle, check out the Dixie Chopper and the Hustler. You can see those online. Just Google them, and you'll be impressed. You'll be impressed. So, let's start. I want to start with Betsy Devos, or DeVos, whatever you want to call her. Education Secretary Betsy Devos has faced a lot of heat with regard to being successfully placed as Education Secretary, nominated and approved. And a lot of people have no freaking clue who the hell she is. They have no clue who she is. They don't care to know who she is. One of the things that she's a big fan of is school choice. And that makes her not popular with the Democrat Party, all right? Because they like kids to go to crappy schools, essentially. Because teachers' unions are in the pants of the Democrat Party. They send most of their donations to the Democrat Party. Consequently, the Democrat Party doesn't want anybody to compete with public schools, and schools don't get better when there's no competition. Well, she was invited to speak to University, Bethune-Cookman, Daytona Beach, Florida. It's a largely black college campus. And, of course, because Betsy DeVos is a white person, partially. Second of all, she was appointed by Donald Trump, and there has been an attempt, successful with many, to strike fear in the hearts of nationalities, African-American students, Hispanics, Jewish students, that Donald Trump is somehow out to get them. There's a great deal of hysteria regarding that. Well, she was invited to come and speak, and as with most conservative speakers on campus these days, she was met with rudeness. All right? Just met with all-in-out rudeness. Now, this is not only students. I don't believe this is just students. I think a lot of this has to do with people in the stands as well. Irregardless, there were students there that this is their proud moment. This is their proud moment, and some tried to take it away by behaving like complete a-holes. Here's Betsy DeVos trying to speak at Bethune-Cookman.
Board of Trustees, thank you so very, very much for this great honor and privilege. I am honored to become a Wildcat. And it's a real honor and privilege to be with you as we celebrate the Bethune-Cookman University class of 2017. Congratulations to all of you. In addition to the graduates, There are so many people deserving of special recognition today. Parents, I'd like to ask all the moms who are here celebrating their graduates to stand right now and be recognized. Moms, please stand up.
Unbelievable. The civility died a long time in this in this country. Now, DeVos has struggled to secure support among the leaders of historically black colleges and universities since February, when she triggered outrage with the statement calling historically black colleges real pioneers when it comes to school choice. Can you believe that? She said that they are living proof that when more options are provided to students, they are afforded greater access and greater quality. Their success has shown that more options help students flourish. Imagine that. Imagine her saying that. Just unbelievable. The Education Department chief, Betsy DeVos, a staunch advocate for school vouchers, seemed to brush over the fact that HBCUs were established because black students were not permitted to attend white segregated schools, so black students didn't really have a choice in the matter. Well, that's not the case anymore, folks. That's not the case anymore. That they still exist is troubling, I think, anyway. Well, here's the president of the university stepping in and basically saying, shut up or go home.
If this behavior continues, your degrees will be mailed to you. Choose which way you want to go.
Okay, now that warning didn't stop them, and they continued it. And apparently there were some protesters out in front of the building. One of them, Reverend Jeffrey Dove, an African Methodist Episcopal church pastor, carried a sign, "No justice, no peace." She says, he said, I don't hate Betsy DeVos, but the fruit from the poison tree is poisonous. Donald Trump is a racist and a sexist, and my job as a preacher is to speak up against that. There's no problem with the dialogue, but this is not a dialogue, it's a monologue. Well, whatever, shut your mouth and let her do her monologue. Honestly. This is not atypical of what happens at universities with regard to conservative speakers. And all they need to know, Donald Trump is a racist and a sexist. That's all he's got to say. Doesn't have to have any proof of it. That's all that's got to be said. And that there's an echo chamber out there that will repeat it without even questioning it. Show me one instance of Donald Trump being a racist. Okay? As far as being a sexist, where were you when Bill Clinton was banging an intern in the White House? I'm getting easier than that. Okay. Let's move on to the firing of Jim Comey by Donald Trump. I got a lot of audio to get to. A lot of people have been saying that it was very similar to the Richard Nixon firing of, or I should say, attempting to fire Archibald Cox. Archibald Cox was not fired. He resigned. And there was what they call, and I was a child when this happened, but there was a Saturday night massacre in the White House with regard to Watergate. And even Tom Brokaw came out as the voice of reason and said, this is nothing like what happened with Richard Nixon.
Well, where I am is that this is not Saturday Night Massacre. I was there covering the Saturday Night Massacre. We had a criminal conspiracy in the White House, well known, that we were working to try to find out what in fact had gone on. Some of the president's top aides were on their way to jail at that point. Investigation had been going on for 18 months. There was nothing that...
There was a legitimate investigation going on. It had been going on for a while, at least a year and a half. Not at all remotely close to what's happening with Donald Trump. Whereas even Donald Trump, and I have not heard confirmation of this, he mentioned in the letter firing James Comey 3 times that Comey had told him he's not being investigated. So prove that first, okay?
Archibald Cox did that would justify his firing in the eyes of almost everyone, including Republicans on that side. So it was a much different kind of situation then, and the consequences were obviously very big. At the same time, you have to remember that James Comey, in the eyes of the Democrats, was a very flawed director of the FBI. I mean, it was very funny today to watch Mitch McConnell on the floor of the Senate in his kind of droll way saying, this is a man that we were hearing from Chuck Schumer and others not so long ago that should not be in this job. And I think that any objective observer would look at him in the last 18 months and say, he seemed not to be in his traces. That's a horse phrase, obviously. He was out wandering around on his own terms. I was very disappointed early on.
Okay, so Brokaw says, not a Saturday night massacre like what happened in Watergate with regard to Richard Nixon and Archibald Cox. Okay. But there's still some mania going on with members of Congress, going on with media, even though some are now taking a common sense approach to this and realizing the differences. This is all about Donald Trump winning the election. That's what it's all about. It's there are a group of people who cannot accept the fact that Hillary Clinton is not the president of the United States. That this man, this, whatever you want to call him, is the president of the United States. A refusal to accept it, a refusal to work with. And this includes Maxine Waters, who I believe what she is doing is seditious. She's not interested whatsoever to be take an active role in the government as one of the three branches. And she is refusing to work with Donald Trump, and all she cares about is impeaching Donald Trump, even though there's no evidence that he did anything impeachable. None whatsoever. There's no evidence at all that he colluded with the Russians to sway the election. It's ridiculous on the face of it. And Ed Markey, I guess he's a senator from Massachusetts. He was on CNN. And because it's not enough to say the country is collapsing, it's not enough to say that there are Nazis on Trump's advisory council in Steve Bannon. Now there is a constitutional crisis. The country is careening towards a constitutional crisis. Now, I want you to hear Ed Markey make this claim, and then he's actually confronted by the CNN host. What the hell do you mean? And he has no reply.
Make it very clear that this country could be careening towards a constitutional crisis. The President of the United States yesterday just fired the investigator who was leading an investigation into the relationship between the Trump campaign, the Trump transition team, and the Russian government.
Now, this former FBI director told Donald Trump on 3 occasions that he was not being investigated. Now we ask where this whole constitutional crisis thing came from.
A constitutional crisis, that is explosive language. What specifically are you pointing to, Senator?
Well, we obviously have very serious allegations that the Russians were attempting to influence our campaign.
Who's making the allegations? So you've got allegations. So what? I could make an allegation that Hillary Clinton is a space alien.
Most sacred event to elect a president in a free and fair election. And there are very strong allegations that the Russians had relationships with people inside of the Trump campaign.
Again, anybody can allege anything. Okay?
In fact, subpoenas have now been issued in Northern Virginia with regard to General Flynn and General Flynn's associates. A grand jury has been impaneled up in New York. So we know that.
Are you suggesting, Senator, are you suggesting that the president's in violation of the Constitution? You use the words constitutional crisis. I understand that you think this causes problems, but you said constitutional crisis. Is he in violation of the Constitution?
What I'm saying is that...
Say yes or no, fool.
The Constitution of the United States provides for an election of a president that is not influenced by foreign countries.
So where's the constitutional crisis? Where's the constitutional crisis? You just said there's a constitutional crisis, and then you went into this... I don't even know what the hell, where you were going with this. It's not a constitutional crisis. Tucker Carlson actually said it in a nutshell very nicely last night.
Clear up one thing right now. It's not a constitutional crisis when the Constitution allows you to do it. The FBI director serves at the pleasure of the president, all presidents, and can be dismissed at any time. And sometimes he ought to be, like yesterday. Politicians sometimes screw up, and when they do, voters get to fire them in elections. But when an unelected bureaucrat with a 10-year term who commands his own army and can put you in prison, what do you do when a guy like that goes off the rails? That's a real problem. In fact, it's the real threat to democracy people on television are always lecturing the rest of us about. That's where we were as of yesterday morning with Comey running the FBI. Now that's been fixed. So no matter how you feel about Trump, you ought to be happy about that.
I liken it to, and I said in episode number 90 of the podcast, that actually it was 91. It's kind of like what the Democrats are going through right now is kind of like when, say, for instance, I'm not speaking from experience because I had to happen to me at least once, where I was convinced that I was going to break up. This is my 20s, right? I was convinced that I was going to break up with this girl, and I was telling my woman, I should say, and I was, tell my friend, whoever, I'd say, this really isn't working out, and here's what's wrong, and here's what's wrong, and here's what's wrong, and then she beat me to the punch and broke up with me, and then she was the best thing in the world, and then she was awesome, and how fantastic she was, and we were perfect together. This is exactly what's happening with the Democrats and with Jim Comey. Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, they had all lost their confidence in him. They were convinced that the election was cost by Jim Comey, and there are other reasons why Jim Comey was fired. All right? There were other reasons why he was fired. He was in charge of the FBI when the nightclub, the gay nightclub in Florida, was attacked. The guy who did it was under investigation by the FBI. Fort Hood Massacre. You got a guy there who has Soldier of Allah on his business card. He was being investigated, and the FBI did absolutely nothing about it. San Bernardino, the same thing. There are a whole bunch of reasons that Jim Comey was let go, and it wasn't because he was investigating Donald Trump. Donald Trump said in his letter, a public letter to the FBI, the former director of the FBI, "You've told me I'm not being investigated 3 times. Why would he say that if he knew that Comey could just say, no, I'm not. No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't. Comey hasn't said anything. Rand Paul was on Fox and Friends yesterday morning. I thought that he kind of put things in a nice nutshell with regard to all of the aspects of this story, from why Comey was fired, why he should have been fired, and what it's all about. What about this investigation into Donald Trump and the Russians is all about. Here's Rand Paul yesterday.
I think it couldn't happen soon enough. I had lost confidence in Comey a long time ago. In fact, I never even voted for his confirmation because I doubted his ability to run the FBI. But I would say that most of America thought that he botched the Clinton email scandal. All the Democrats thought he said too much, and all the Republicans thought he didn't do enough. So he had the confidence of almost no one. Chuck Schumer said 6 months ago that he had lost confidence in him.
Thank you.
But I thought it was especially telling that in the letter that the Assistant Attorney General sent, he said that Eric Holder said that Comey had violated long-standing Department of Justice procedures. And I think without question that's true. And I think he politicized something by making way too many statements to the press. So I think it is time for new leadership at the FBI.
Now, there are no new developments in the Russian ties, supposedly, with Donald Trump and the election. Okay, so if it would have happened 10 days after after Donald Trump was sworn in, I'm sure the Democrats would still have made political hay out of this, even though things have not changed. Nothing has changed. No evidence has been uncovered. Here's some more on Rand Paul and how James Comey, nobody had any confidence in him.
In what way did he lose your confidence? Well, there are a couple of other episodes. One of the prominent episodes where I really didn't like their reaction or lack of action was in the Orlando killing.
And I just mentioned that.
You remember the mass murder that happened down in Orlando? The killer went in to buy lots of ammunition and lots of Kevlar armor, and the gun store owner called the FBI.
And by the way, Barack Obama was the guy who nominated Jim Comey to be the leader of the FBI. Under his watch, the last couple of years, and you know the stories. When Obama took office, he was afraid to say Islamic terror, even when there were glaring signs that an act of terror could be committed by someone who followed the religion of Islam, soldier of God. The FBI was told to lay off. Jim Comey was the head of the FBI.
They kind of went and got there, but they never looked at the footage, and they never presented any images of potential terrorists. This guy was a potential terrorist. It had been investigated for 2 years. All they had to do was show an array of photos to the gun store owner weeks in advance of the killing, and they might have stopped this. But the FBI, including Comey, refused to take any responsibility for missteps, and all they continue to ask for is more power to invade our phone calls and more power to invade our privacy. So I was not a huge Comey fan, but I think really both sides lost confidence because he politicized, I think, the Clinton email investigation.
Okay, and then there was some of that on both sides, by the way. I remember when the Monday following the meeting, Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton on a jet on a tarmac in Arizona that was not an accident, by the way, where they talked for 45 minutes about their grandchildren. The following Monday, Jim Comey said there would be no indictment of Hillary Clinton. We're in the middle of an election, no indictment. So I was angry about that because I thought that could have cost the election. If she had been indicted, then she would have definitely lost the election, but she wasn't. And then about, 10 days later, we find out that Huma Abedin had a laptop. I'm not talking about her husband's favorite dance, but had a laptop with more emails, so they reopened it, and then the Democrats were pissed off. Here's Rand Paul talking about collusion, possible collusion between the Russian government and Donald Trump with regard to the election.
I don't even, not only is there no evidence that the Trump administration or campaign was connected to Russia or committed any crime, no evidence at all of committing a crime. There's not even an accusation that I know of what crime would have potentially been committed. So all this.
Yeah, what exactly did happen? Give me some details. You've got allegations that the Trump administration or the Trump campaign were colluding with the Russians. Tell me exactly what that means. Were they involved in rigging voting machines? Were there Russian agents on the ground signing up illegals to vote? Oh, wait, no. That's what Democrats do. Sorry, that's wrong. No. But tell me exactly how they threw the election together.
Breathless talk about people. There's a lot of hypocrisy going on. Many of these Democrats, including Chuck Schumer, said they lost confidence in Comey a long time ago. Hillary Clinton's been blaming Comey. They should be thanking President Trump for getting rid of Comey because he politicized something that may well have had something to do with Hillary Clinton's loss. So I think it's a lot of crocodile tears and a lot of people saying, they were for getting rid of Comey too, but now they're going to say it's all about this Russia investigation, which hasn't produced one iota of evidence that anybody did anything wrong or broke the law.
Okay. There was a conspiracy about Barack Obama being born outside the United States. I don't know how you feel about that. His grandmother said that he was born in Ethiopia. Then she kind of just disappeared. And we waited how many years to have him finally. He went to Hawaii and got the birth certificate. Okay, but that was an allegation. Okay, that was an allegation, and there was caterwauling. There were cries of outrage in the country. How could we possibly not trust Barack Obama and his being born in the United States, even though relatives had said, no, he was born in Kenya? Now we've got just allegations, amorphous allegations. There's nothing out there. There's no proof. There's no actual claims of how. But some people are just willing to go all in on it. Here's Rand Paul talking about what this really is all about.
It's sour grapes over the election. The whole Russia thing, I think, has been propagated by people who are upset they lost the election. They've sunk their teeth into something. They think they'll eventually find something. But everything is sort of built upon a huge myth as far as I'm concerned. I don't think there's been any facts presented that anybody broke the law. And yet this goes on and on. The clamor now for a special prosecutor and all of this, special investigation. No, I don't think there's any evidence that anybody broke the law.
Sure. Okay, now this is 100 and what days into an administration. We're only this far into administration. We've got people who are attempting to sabotage it. It really is breathtaking. It really is. And it's not just politicians, it's media members as well. It's late night TV hosts. It's just, honestly, it's really, really breathtaking. the temper tantrum that the left in this country is throwing about Donald Trump. One more soundbite from Senator Rand Paul talking about Donald Trump's claims of wiretapping, which, by the way, regardless, if you want to mince words, maybe it wasn't wiretapping, maybe that is a dated expression. However, it is all encompassing as technology has changed. Wiretapping means something. It doesn't mean what it used to, which is actually tapping into a wire in your phone.
And I think some of the media have gotten this wrong. When President Trump said he was wiretapped, of course he was. We don't really do old-fashioned wiretapping. There's no wires attached to most of our phones. Wiretapping means that you were surveilled. Someone listened by using some sort of modern technology that really is not literally a wiretap anymore.
Yes.
But they did listen to Flynn's phone call. And this is an amazing invasion of privacy. And realize what kind of world we're going to live in.
Yeah, and by the way, he was incidentally surveilled. All right? Michael Flynn was incidentally surveilled. The FBI said that it was surveilling foreign agents, and Americans might have been incidentally surveilled. The real truth is that Donald Trump and his people were being surveilled, and they were using the guise of them speaking to Russian officials, as do Democrats, and did Democrats during the campaign, as an excuse to surveil Donald Trump's team.
Live in. And realize a statement that Chuck Schumer said just a week or two ago. He said, don't mess with our intelligence community because they'll get you 6 ways to Sunday if you do, and that Trump's making a big mistake here. But this is coming from one of the people, Schumer's one of the 8 people in Congress that know everything about intelligence. When he says that the president should be afraid of the intelligence community, that should make us all wake up. Because what about the lesser mortals in this country if they decide they don't like us?
Mm-hmm. And by the way, where is the incidental surveillance of Democrats? If that's what this is all about, the Russians. What about the incidental surveillance of Democrats talking to Russians? Why have we not heard anything about that? Barack Obama weaponized several agencies in the government. He weaponized the EPA. He weaponized the IRS with regard to 501c3s that were conservative. He weaponized those agencies. Is it any surprise that he would weaponize the FBI to use against his political opponents? Does that surprise you? Doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me, man. And there's evidence of that. Maxine Waters. Can we talk about Maxine Waters? I'm gonna wrap things up talking about Maxine Waters. Let me get her theme song out here. At an age when most Americans would be working as a greeter at Walmart, she's still a highly regarded senator, even though she's dumb as a box of rocks without the rocks. She's a hero of the left because all she can talk about is impeachment of Donald Trump without any evidence. Okay? That's all she can talk about. We're going to impeach Donald Trump. And she is shrill. She is bat crap crazy. That's my bat crap crazy sound effect. She was on with NBC's Peter Alexander, and he went after her. And she had announced that he had lost all credibility previously. And I got a couple sound bites from her. Here's the first one, where you'll hear her talking about Jim Comey, and then he confronts her about how she's changed her mind.
No, it's classified and we can't tell you anything. All I can tell you is the FBI director has no credibility.
Okay.
That was Congresswoman Maxine Waters criticizing now former FBI Director James Comey after a closed briefing on Russia's interference in the U.S. election. It took place just 1 week before the president took office here at the White House. For more, I want to bring in the Congresswoman herself, Maxine Waters, who is joining me now. Congresswoman, we appreciate your time. You obviously have been very critical of James Comey in the past. You said that he had no credibility. I assume that you support the president's decision then to fire his FBI director.
That is a good question and a valid question.
No, I do not necessarily support the president's decision. If the president had not gone all over the country praising him about the way he handled Hillary and the emails, if the president said he had confidence in him.
Did Donald Trump ever criticize him before this, like the Democrats did? I'm just saying.
If the president had not said he was a part of his team.
But
then,
Congresswoman,
yes.
I understand that in the past he was praising him, but if you said that FBI Director James Comey had no credibility, wouldn't you support the fact that the president, then candidate Trump, now President Trump, made the decision to get rid of him?
No, not necessarily.
When did he suddenly gain credibility in your eyes?
Necessarily. And let me tell you
Why not?
why. You have an investigation going on where the president is implicated. And this is a serious investigation. I've been trying to get people to focus on this connection with the Kremlin and with Putin. I have a resolution that I introduced in February. I think there's enough there that we know about the Kremlin and about Putin to be concerned about whether or not there was collusion.
Let's talk about the real evidence of collusion, and that is Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State and her husband's foundation getting $125 million in a donation and then being granted the rights to 20% of the uranium mining rights in the United States to the Russians. That's some collusion. Here's Peter Alexander continuing to try and get answers from bat crap crazy Maxine Waters.
They should have to connect the dots and get the facts, because I think it will lead to the impeachment of this president.
So, Congresswoman, respecting that, to be clear, you believe it would have been better to keep in place an FBI director who you said had no credibility to oversee this investigation than to find someone who you think would be a better choice?
No, but I believe the president thought that. Don't forget, you're talking about what some Democrats said, what I said, but don't forget, he was the president. The president supported him. He had confidence in him. It was within his power. And
but you said he had no credibility, so it would seem to make sense that he should get rid of him.
No. Under investigation, this president basically has interfered with an investigation where he may be implicated.
God bless her husband, or having to hear that voice his entire life. Is she married? When you are a boss, in public, you do not criticize an employee that you know you're going to let go. If you do an evaluation, it is held in private. Donald Trump, I'm not sure exactly who he said derogatory things, but with regard to, obviously with Congress people, he said some things, but as far as the FBI director, he said very glowing things about this person. He's not going to show his cards if he's considering firing the guy. That's the way things work in the real world. You don't show your cards. And then when they're fired, they're fired. You allow them to continue to do the job they're doing, providing, I guess, some degree of what they might conceive as approval to continue what they're doing, to continue down this path. And if they do, you let them go. Cold turkey, you let them go. You send them a letter, and you let them go. More from Maxine Waters.
Understood. So if Hillary Clinton had won the White House, would you have recommended that she fire FBI Director James Comey?
Well, let me tell you something. If she had won the White House, I believe that given what he did to her and what he tried to do, she should have fired him. Yes.
So she should have fired him, but he shouldn't have fired him. This is why I'm confused.
No, you're not confused. If
no,
the
but you are.
Is implicated in an investigation, the president of the United States, who has a history of firing people who get close to, him and his allies.
Wait. He has a history of firing people who get too close to him and his allies? Really?
Like Flynn and like Miss Yates, he will fire them.
Democrats demanded Flynn be let go.
If he believes somehow they're getting too close to him.
Okay. Now we're just beyond just conspiracy theories and mind-numbingly flaccid arguments. Now we're just getting into a history that doesn't exist. It really is quite remarkable. It really is. Hey, we're going to wrap things up right now. This has been episode 92 of the Rob Carson Show podcast. I want to thank you very much for listening, guys. Big news, we are on iHeartRadio as well. So we've got several different listening platforms for you to check out the show. I'm on Facebook at facebook.com and just look for Rob Carson Show, on Twitter at Rob Carson as well. I want to thank redmaryland.com for carrying the podcast. Redmaryland.com, a terrific political blog. They do a great podcast as well, by the way. Thank you, guys. Do appreciate it. Also want to thank Hustler and Dixie Chopper Mowers and Grass Monsters KC, grassmonsterskc.com, for being an official sponsor of the show. And also don't forget our politically incorrect swag line, T-shirts, hats. We've got onesies, we've got tank tops, we've got hoodies, we've got mugs, got laptop cases, phone cases, all with very cool politically incorrect sayings on them, like Crab Lives Matter. That's a Maryland T-shirt. We got some great Missouri-centric stuff. We got some great Kansas-centric stuff. We've got some great Maryland-centric stuff. All of it available at teepublic.com, teepublic.com. Just look for Conservatees. That's Conserva, T-E-E-S. All right? So teepublic.com, Conserva, T-E-E-S, to order yours. And Mother's Day's coming up, and don't forget Father's Day is coming up in June. Have a glorious rest of your day. God bless you. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you back here real soon.
Thanks for listening to The Rob Carson Show. Friend him on Facebook at Carson Show, on Twitter at Rob Carson, and on Instagram, I think Facebook and Twitter are enough for now. We'll see you soon.